All right, well, this is the Model A, 1929 Model A Tudor Sedan, and I'm getting it ready for a car show on Saturday. And so I just pulled it out of the garage, hadn't run all winter. It started right up, um, but it's running kind of rough and it seems real hot. So I'm just checking things out. First thing, there was a lot of squeaking going on with the water pump. Sounds like the squeaking's coming from in here. About all I can really do is check these two Zerk fittings here. The back one was pretty plugged up, so I've cleaned it out and I'm reinstalling it, and I'll squirt some more grease in there. Carburetor's leaking gas. That usually happens. I think it's a bowl problem. I usually tap it and that fixes it. So we'll see if that matters. Seems to be leaking pretty profusely right now, so we'll see. So there's that. I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe there's some screws that need to be tightened up, but I'm pretty sure that's the float in there is stuck. Usually does that in the wintertime. Alright, so I'll take a look at that, and then just gotta get some gas in it. Gotta get the back end straightened out. Last time I had it on the trailer, since it doesn't have any windows in the front, it gets a lot of air blowing through it, and back seat's all disheveled. And I'll have to get that all straightened out too. So I'll be pumping up the tires, and I guess that gas leak's the biggest thing, and it just isn't running very well. And so I'll go through it, check the oil. Again, the battery held up real well and it's charging when I have it running, so that part all seems fine. So I'll do some adjustment here, and then we'll take it to the show on Saturday, assuming I can get it all fixed up. Alright, so I've decided to take the carburetor off, and it's really pretty easy. This is a Zenith. I don't know what the number is, but I got it off of eBay. This car, when I got it some years ago, had an old Marvel Schebler carburetor that was broken. I think that was maybe off a tractor, but I'm not sure. So you just have to disconnect the choke rod and the this is the idle linkage to the steering column, and then the gas input pipe from the settling bulb. And once you get down to that, there's just two bolts here, and I'll just take those off. We'll move into the shop and put this on the table and kind of see what we're dealing with. It seems like the float is stuck, and there's gas leaking all over the place, and we just can't have that. Ugh. Okay, now I'm getting gas everywhere. All right, you can join me here in a second at the workbench. All right, well, here's the carburetor. You can see the Zenith -1 right there. And it's got a Z on here. I'm not sure what those mean exactly. It must be some kind of version. This was all dry on this side, and that's all I could see. But if you look at the other side, this is where we've been leaking. And I don't think it's the gasket. I think it's this vent hole right here. And this is like an overflow, I think, for the bowl. So that's what it looks like to me. That's been leaking profusely. So that tells me that inside here it's probably just a stuck float valve. And this seems to happen especially when these things sit for quite a while. I'm going to go find a little container to dump this gas in. All right, and all it takes is this one bolt right here. I think it's this one is what holds these two together. So let me, looks like a 1/2 inch or 9/16, so let me grab that. Seems like when I got this carburetor off of eBay, it had a strip. This was stripped out, so I had to drill the hole a little bigger and then I had to make the threads, tap it. And so that repair seemed to work pretty well. I expect we're going to have trouble getting this apart. Just because there's a lot of goop in there. So let me work on this a little bit. Of course, we can see all the gas dripping out of it. So let me work this over for a few minutes, and then I'll get back to you. I've got gas everywhere. All right, so I drained all the gas out of it, and I've put the bolts back in, the plug back in, the drain plug and the bolt that goes up through the middle and holds the two pieces together. And I shook it, and I can hear the float going up and down, so it doesn't appear to be stuck anymore. I guess it's possible the little valve with the rubber tip on it that's pointed up is still stuck. But I think what I'm going to do is just sort of temporarily mount this, hook up the fuel to it again, and turn the fuel on and see if the float valve will stop it from overflowing. So I'm going to try that. That shouldn't take very long, and I'll let you know how that turns out. Because what I'm trying to do is not bust open this gasket here, because I'm not sure I have another one that I can use. So I'm just trying not to get too deep into it. Alright, so I've got it temporarily hooked up here. I just didn't hook up all the other things, but I did hook up the fuel line. Right now I'm going to turn on the fuel valve, and we'll see if it starts leaking. And we'll know pretty soon, I would think, as the fuel starts to go into the bowl. So far, so good. It's dry on the bottom so far. So we give it another minute here and kind of see. So far no leaking, but maybe there's a air bubble in there or something, so perhaps we should start the engine and then kind of see how it does. So I'm going to turn this off, and I just got to hook up the choke rod, and some of the parts fell under the car. So let me go get those, and we'll try that and see if we've fixed this thing. Alright, got it all hooked up. It still is not dripping, which is great. So I'm going to go start the engine and then see if that changes anything. So bear with me. Alright, I declare that fixed, and we're not leaking any gas. So the float was the problem, and usually tapping it fixes it, but this time I had to actually pull the carb off and shake it, empty the gas out of it and shake it up and down just to get the float free. So that's good news. I guess I should winterize it differently, maybe drain all the gas out of the carb before putting it to bed, and maybe that keeps the valve open instead of closed. So I don't know, we'll see about that. There's probably some instruction somewhere about how best to do that. So that's the Model A. We fixed that part. I also noticed that my carburetor adjustment, which is also done by this rod, was really lean, and that was probably why it was running so roughly. So now I'm going to drive it up and down the street and kind of see how it goes. And I also need to tighten up that fan belt, and you do that by pulling the generator out slightly. So I'll go do that right now, and then we'll take it for a spin. Alright, now this is kind of hard to see, but I'm leaking radiator fluid, and it's coming down and dripping there and then running down that way. It's also all over the flywheel down there, or the pulley down there, and it's on this pulley as well. And actually this is pretty tight, so I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to adjust that. I'm just going to leave it. But I am going to adjust the seal adjustment here, and what this has under it, right under here, is a giant bolt, and there's a threaded section of it, and there's basically waxed rope wrapped around inside there as the sealing material, and every so often it stretches out and gets springs a leak. So what you do is you take a screwdriver and a hammer, and the idea is to just tighten. You put your screwdriver in one of the notches, and then you tighten that nut slightly, and that cinches it up again by squeezing it. So I'm just going to leave it just like that and see if that doesn't solve the problem of leaking. So we'll keep an eye on that. Alright, I think I'm going to take it for a spin. It's got coolant in it, and I just got to check the gas, and we'll take it for a little spin. So as we talked about a couple days ago, maybe a week ago, I was preparing the Model A for a car show, and earlier in this video I showed how I expertly fixed the carburetor by shaking the carburetor and breaking free what appeared to be a stuck bowl float in the carburetor. Well, I put it all back together and started the car, drove it around, and about 5 minutes after that it started leaking just like it was before. So obviously the shaking the carburetor didn't really do it. I need to get inside. I assume that means that the adjustment on the little flange needs to be made on the carburetor float so that it closes that valve at the appropriate level. So I've ordered and received a new gasket set for the carburetor. So I'll be going through the carburetor and I'll just rebuild it while I have the chance, blow it out, clean it, put new gaskets in, and adjust that float also. Also, I was looking at the fan belt and I explained how loose it was. And I really can't adjust it more because the fan belt's in such bad shape. It's stretched out and it's broken in many places. And if I try to adjust it further by moving the generator out a little bit to tighten that all up, the generator pulley is going to hit the lower radiator hose. So it's kind of beyond what can be adjusted there. So I got a new fan belt, and I'll be installing that on the Model A to fix that problem. So during the car show, which was in La Pine, Oregon, a week or so ago, I found that every time you stop running the car, if you just turn the gas off under the fuel tank inside the cab of the car, it wouldn't leak. But if you didn't turn it off, it would leak profusely like it did before. So I've gotten in the habit of turning the gas off until I get the carburetor fixed. Also wanted to point out, much to my surprise, the Model A won the unrestored category first place. So I got this cool plaque from the car show. It's the coolest plaque this car's won a few awards every now and then. Usually when it's the only one in the category, that's when I win. But there were a number of unrestored cars, and I was real pleased to get this plaque for first place in the unrestored category. So that was kind of cool. It was a great show, and we enjoyed it a lot. So I'll be fixing the carburetor, and I'll be installing the new fan belt, and I'll take some video of that and see if that makes sense to put out on YouTube. So anyway, that's the Model A. It's a great car, and I really enjoy taking it to car shows and showing people. And it's really amazing to me how people seem more and more to appreciate kind of barn condition cars that have all their history and all their marks and all their dents, rust, scratches, broken glass, everything you can think of. People really appreciate bringing a car to a car show that has all the history right displayed on it instead of being all painted up. So I really appreciate that. I had just tons of people come by and say, this is the coolest car in the whole show. But anyway, the Model A is great to take to car shows. I'll be taking it to one in Sun River in September and one up in Madras at the Air Show. And if I can find another one between now and then, I'll probably take it to that too. All right, well, thanks for that. Talk to you later.